Crossbows. All right. So what's up, Wes? What's so like? Okay, so a couple of questions.
Right.
Um, so for anyone who's listening in for the first time, since I imagine I'll be asked to like make a stream highlight of this, for anyone who's listening for the first time, I'm Crimson. I'm a speedrunner. In the call is Wes. He's a crafter, blaster. He's in the mercantile class, is the way that he says it. And they changed crafting such that you can only have one crafted mod on an item, which means you can no longer have multiple essence mods on an item. Not even if one is greater and one is perfect. You just get one now. And that affects a lot of the like league start budget crafts that got people online and progressing super fast. And so like we're asking Wes, who is in the mercantile class, to explain to us what the hell this means for like mirror tier crafting is essentially the same, but like for our league start crafts, what are we going to do? So first off, how big of a change do you think this is as someone who is crafting nowhere?
I mean, for weapons, it blows them up, basically. It's kind of just trying to think about why they did this change, and quite simply, people say that it's like a mid-tier weapon, but the weapon that you were able to craft this league and the previous league could kill all of the content. So essentially, you go from like early maps, you get a couple of perfect essences and maybe one divine to go buy the thing.
Yep.
Or like buy the correct base, and then you could use that weapon for the rest of the game until
Yep.
you're done.
Yep.
And that is very strong and kind of ruins progression. So now it's you can't do that.
Yeah,
and
but isn't so like obviously the weights are different, but
mhm.
tier 1 IPD and tier 1 spell levels have within a factor of 2 of the same weight. So maybe it costs a couple more div to buy a blue staff with spell levels than it does to buy a perfect crossbow or a mace or talisman or whatever. But like, doesn't this just mean that if I can get like a staff with plus levels and some decent flat damage, I can then essence on my preferred gain, and like I can do that like a basic essence crafted staff, the equivalent of the weapon one, doesn't that just also like
Okay, so
clear all content
for
and like destroy progression and everything else? Like why?
yeah, so the equivalent staff you need to drop with spell levels, and then you can't essence on gain, but you can essence on spell damage, cast speed, or crit chance. And depending on your build, one of those may be higher than the other, likely crit chance.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you drop a crit chance staff, or sorry, not a crit chance, a spell level staff, you can essence on crit chance, and then you just hope to be able to dodge mana in the prefixes, which is challenging, and you need to use whittles a lot of the time to fix. But yes, if you drop a plus level staff, then you can like clear the game, or plus level wand and plus level focus.
Well,
You can clear the game, which is more an issue of balance with spells, I think.
but doesn't that mean that if I'm playing a build that uses a single damage type, for example, plant builds, if you're using,
Mhm.
Entangling Vine, and then your bossing build is Bone Storm, and those are both physical spells, the
Mhm.
weight for physical spell levels and for any specific spell type is pretty
Mhm.
high in
Yep.
comparison to other things. So, like, if I'm playing a monotype build, if I'm playing a lightning build, a cold build, a fire build, whatever, a single element type, then isn't this just like just as trivial as it was for the weapon case? Like, why? Like, what would you speculate the changes are for the balance of how easy it is to get a plant build online compared to a weapon build online? Where previously I felt those were pretty comparable in early to mid map progression, and then now I just feel like, do you think that I'm going to be able to find a 5 divine staff that with my plant bone storm build I can clear all content, and that the same will not be true of weapons, of martial
Correct.
weapons?
Yeah, I mean, the like staff spell casting weapons has been easier to make than martial weapons always. Like it was true in when in 0.3 when we had Omen of Homogenizing Exaltation. and it is true. It was true in 0.4, and it is true now.
So like if you as a crafting knower were talking to someone in chat who was like on the fence between a weapon-based build and a spell-based build, and their goal was to get online fast, like if that was a priority for them, would you just tell them that this update should push them towards spells?
Yeah, 100%. Because you could see the other scenario being you drop a staff that has like tier 1 gain or tier 1 elemental type damage that you look for, and you could drop these very easily because those are level 81 mods and not level 82 mods. And you could drop those very easily, and say you drop a magic base that has a good prefix damage type and then either cast speed or crit chance. You can then use a perfect essence of sorcery to get your spell levels, and while it's not going to be the top tier spell levels, it is still probably good enough to clear all the content in the game.
And that perfect essence of sorcery used to give +5 all spells, and now is going to give +3 all spells?
No, it still gives +5, unless that change happened today or yesterday, or I just missed it. But only the martial skill levels were touched on essence crafting.
So then just like it's objectively incorrect to league start martial weapons.
I wouldn't say objectively incorrect. I would
For,
say
if
subjectively.
if you're a min max push Andy, spells are going to be faster to get online.
Probably, yeah. Probably faster.
Wes, you need to up your stream elo and start saying bombastic shit. It's good. Come on.
There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance to this. Because the power of spells is not equivalent to the power of like 8-button twister or ice shot snipe or martial artist.
Sure. So my next question is like, if I'm at the same point this league where, so like I'll phrase the question in reverse order from what I was going to say. Okay. Last league, I get 5 to 10 div. Right. My guild has a crafting player. I go to that crafting player, I give them my 5 to 10 div, and I say, make me a crossbow. And I end up with a crossbow that has tier 3 IPD, tier 3 flat fizz, gain, levels, onslaught, blah, blah, blah. And then now I know how to do that myself.
Right.
What does 5 to 10 div get me if I'm only allowed to have 1 essence and 1 desecration?
We don't know. It gets you an item dropped on the ground. So it gets you probably a very well-rolled, like, rare crossbow that somebody dropped and put up on trade for, like, 2 to 3 divine or something like that. And then you slammed on the attack speed desecration and a perfect essence of battle for +4.
So
it's not really, you don't have to worry so much about the like crafting steps anymore. You just have to worry about having something that dropped with good prefixes.
So does that mean that if I find an item on the ground that has my prefix of preference, like, you know, IPD or flat lightning or whatever,
yeah,
and a decent suffix, my crafting step I mean, we need to do the math in order to figure out statistically what's optimal, but is your day one guess right now that the best thing to do is to like essence for another prefix and then desecrate and pray if it already has levels?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options. You can look for a like tier 3 or tier 2 crossbow. Well, I'm just gonna stick with crossbows that has tier 3 or tier 2 IPD, and then you essence on abrasion for the tier 3 flat fizz, and that should give you like quite a bit of damage. And then you can desecrate on the attack speed, which I don't know if the attack speed is like the best for grenades, but you can desecrate on your attack speed, or you could try to desecrate for your final prefix, and then the suffix is in fact slam and pray. So it's like your available crossbow in like tier 5 to tier 10 maps or whatever, like very early on, is likely going to be a crossbow that has 3 good mods on it and then 3 random mods.
So, okay. So then feedback from me as a guide author who's going to need to give people advice. Obviously, I'm going to look at this myself as well, but is your initial guess that the crafting strategy I should tell people to do is find a crossbow that has any high damage prefix and levels, essence for another prefix, desecrate with tag, because the most important thing on the crossbow that you can get as a suffix is a desecration. Grenades activate additional time.
You can get that? Yeah, absolutely go for
that. Or you can get a prefix that is like 60% IPD, 60% increased grenade damage. That's a prefix that you can get. So there are good grenade desecrates, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, then I would definitely desecrate for that good grenade desecration.
Okay.
On your build.
Okay. This just means that it's a lot harder to get the holy trinity of IPD, flat, and levels.
Correct. Yeah. My guess is that early on you shouldn't worry about levels. I don't know if this is true for crossbows, but I know most martial classes struggle with having a lot of levels early and maintaining mana.
Not a problem.
Not a problem? Okay.
In realistic circumstances, not a problem for grenades.
Gotcha. In that case, having early plus levels is probably good. It really depends on what's better for your class. Of does having that flat fizz, you could probably POB this if you felt like it, is having a thing with flat fizz and increased grenade damage better than increased grenade damage and plus levels? And you can make that decision based on what POB tells you or your own vibes, I guess. But for a lot of martial classes, having the levels early tends to ruin mana, especially if you don't have mana leech in your build. And so I think the recommendation I would have for most martial classes is to go with the flat fizz essence of abrasion, like greater essence of abrasion. So that way you're not super worried about mana by having like over leveled your skills.
Okay. And then in terms of non-weapon crafts, that we don't typically end up, for most attack-based builds, the ideal rings only involve like one essence step, because it's just slam on a second resistance once you have a flat and a resist that you like. So this doesn't, in your mind, change much for attack-based rings. Does this change anything for caster-based jewelry?
It depends on what caster-based jewelry you're going for, but for like, let's say you're trying to make a mana stacker ring or something like that that has like percent lightning, flat mana, and percent mana, that is unchanged for the most part.
Okay.
And then I'm not as familiar with like the blood mage ring craft that people are doing, but I have to imagine that it's very similar, that they don't care.
Yeah, and the other thing is
the caster rings.
The other thing that Chad is correctly pointing out is that mana stackers will be going to the Genesis tree now as well. So like caster jewelry, not a big problem.
Yeah, you'll get spell damage on it, and you'll hopefully get mana, and then
for like the most generically desirable boots, where you have flat and percent, and then movement speed in prefixes, and like resistances in the suffixes, ignoring Essence of Horrorcraft, that seems like it's like ridiculously hard to make just like generic stacker triple res boots now. Like much harder than it was before, right?
For the boots, you want to start with a pair of boots that has movement speed as like a magic base.
Yeah.
And then one resist, and then you essence on a second resist, and then you desecrate for a third, and you hope that your two prefixes are the defenses that you want them to be.
And
but
is that
the like early craft that we were doing in the past was using Essence of Hysteria to guarantee 30% movement speed, and then Essence of Horror is a little bit later, but you could guarantee like movement speed, increased socketed effect, and then have like an extra res as well. So that particular boot craft is now not possible, but if you just start with a magic base that has 30% or 35% or whatever move speed, then it's fine, I guess.
So
It's just
like
like all the other armors.
so a common like day 1 of league, day 2 of league economic strategy that people have is trying to buy cheap boots at high item levels and then Omen of Putrefaction and like just pray essentially.
Yeah.
That was like already viable for like minor profits early on. Is that like much better now because it's going to need to compete less with the early really good boots?
Probably, yeah.
So like if someone's making an economic strategy, Omen of Putrefaction boot crafting is alive and compared to the
Yeah,
field much stronger.
I don't know about much stronger, but it's definitely good.
If I'm trying to make like I don't know, we'll talk about like an armor chest piece, for example. If I want like
Mhm.
flat armor, percent armor, life, double res, and armor applies to elemental, or the equivalent on other bases where you want, deflection or, ES
Yeah.
recharge rate or whatever. Like that making like a T3 all chest like that was already really hard, right?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
It hasn't changed. So the way that, well, I guess it has been made harder because the perfect augments and transmutes are now more rare. We'll have to see how rare they are, but also they lowered the item level floor on greater augments and transmutes from 50 to 44, which introduces an extra mod in the pool. Um, but essentially, you're just kind of doing this en masse of taking armors, slamming them with your
Mm-hmm.
blue crafting materials, and hoping to get one good defense prefix and then a resistance in the suffix or your like secondary
Mm-hmm. Your
defense
deflection, your
thing.
elemental armor, your ES recharge, yeah.
Yeah. So you're hoping to get those, and then you're doing like a greater essence. This is for like super early crafts, but you're doing your greater essence. So now you have 3 mods that you want, and then you're probably slamming the prefix for hoping to get 2 good defenses as well. And then the final thing is desecrating, because at least early on, desecrations are fairly expensive. And because they have made the leak mechanics the way they've made them this
Mm-hmm.
time around, I think they will continue to be expensive early. So
So,
at least for me, the armor crafting for chest, helm, and boots is like the same that I've always done.
and then it's essentially just martial weapons are the most affected by this.
Yeah, I mean, caster weapons are also affected, but just less so.
Mm.
In
Couple,
particular, the caster weapons that I wanted to craft, I used the perfect essence to get the mana cost efficiency, and now I won't be able to do that, and that does make me feel bad.
so a couple of questions about like progression strategies if people are trying to optimize.
Hmm.
Since it's going to be much harder to get a very good martial weapon online, do you, again, super speculative, do you expect that selling eye level 80 plus martial weapon bases on the first couple days of league is going to be much more valuable now because we have much bigger sync for those bases?
Mm, maybe. I mean, level 82 bases early on always sell really well because level 82 is very hard to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So those will be as profitable as ever.
Mm-hmm.
But like level 81 is probably okay. I mean, you're probably better off just slamming the level 81s yourself. But if you wanted to like cash them out, you could. I'm not sure what they sell for. I usually slam everything myself,
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but there are definitely people that do that. Yeah.
and then because if someone in chat isn't comfortable crafting for themselves but wants to be able to participate economically to afford things, do you
Mhm.
think that like this is going to change the price of common crafting materials? Like, do you expect that now desecration materials are going to be more expensive or more desirable? Do you think that ritual like high volume omens are going to be more valuable?
Uh, yes, because they've increased the they've inflated the amount of divines that are going to be dropping in your maps. So it's not going to be Temple League where things cost like 40 divine for a fracturing orb like a month in. However, the amount of divines are like valueless. Divines are like paper money, whereas your like greater exalts, perfect chaos are actually useful, like oil, I guess. I don't know. This analogy is landing, but you can't really do things with dollars, but you can do a lot with petroleum. So like
Oh, holy shit, dude! We're in Stalathon for real.
yeah. so I mean like the in 0.3, like a perfect exalt or a perfect chaos was like 2 to 3 divine.
Uh-huh.
And that did come down over time, but it as like people learned the homogenizing crafts. But this go around, it's like those perfect exalts, those perfect chaos, even the greater ones are going to be extremely valuable, and like desecrated is going to be extremely valuable. So
A couple of
if you wanted to participate economically, I would say do your preferred league mechanic and sell that
okay,
or hoard it
or
if you
hoarding,
don't want to craft.
yeah. So then, are there particular things that we should be looking at for like? So, for example, there are going to be like new crafting strategies as a consequence of this rule, where you can only
Mhm.
have one crafted mod at a time. So, for example, like I can't remember the name of the crafting material, but it adds Mark of the Abyssal Lord. It's like an essence of
Yeah.
the abyss or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that mean that there are a lot more like poor man annuls that are available in that way?
Well, Mark of the Abyssal Lord is an essence. So if you wanted to do Mark of the Abyssal Lord shenanigans,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have another essence on there, which is
Mm-hmm.
challenging. As for like other poor man's annuls, there's always strategies that come out about this. So I wouldn't be surprised if some perfect essence you're using to do that is actually now not working. Like there was an amulet craft early on in 0.4 where you could use a or not greater, perfect defense to put on your global defense on the amulet, and you could shuffle that with the mark of the Abyssal Lord and like continuously retry to get a certain modifier. I think it was Spirit. Um, but you could try over and over again, just shuffling those things,
Mm-hmm.
and now you won't be able to do that actually. But we'll have to see what comes with like the runic crafting because there's just a lot that we don't know.
I mean, and the same thing is true of the Genesis tree because we just don't have the Genesis tree nodes yet. They may be uploaded because they said that they just added the stuff to the website, and we're literally talking while the website is down. So maybe
I
we'll know
see.
in like 2 hours, but it's possible that we'll have
Yeah.
the Genesis tree.
Yeah, well, the Genesis tree is interesting because they said you can only allocate 15 points, and there's like 50 to 60 in the ring area
Mm-hmm.
or the amulet area. So it's like you could go for one of those like special amulets that gives you a spirit skill for free, but doing so means you get no choices on the actual modifiers that drop.
Is there anything that's changed about mirror crafting at all? Like if I want to make a mirror tier mace now, has literally anything changed for me?
Mm, probably not. I guess maybe the price of omens is better because in ritual it should only be omens and uniques. So it's possible that you'll see like whittlings more and other things. So I don't think they would have changed that too much, but it's possible that it's easier to see omens now. And so it'll be comparatively cheaper, but the process is still the same.
So how I mean, from the point of view of the sort of person who's watching build guide videos on YouTube, right? So an above average player who's more plugged into the meta than a normal player. How big of a deal is this for like your first week of the patch? Like
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Like your weapon is your damage, and now you don't get to skip from tier 5. You don't get to skip from finding your first like 2 or 3 divines to then just beating the game. I don't know how it's gonna feel. It'll be a much slower progression, and I'm fine with them wanting to slow that down. I'm hoping that essences and alloys don't share a thing, or the new runic crafting stuff isn't shared, or there's a lot that I'm like coping about, but it is definitely like it's probably a healthy update for the game, but it is like less fun because I like doing this manipulative kind of craft. So for
So
the player who is trying to go to like their first week and they're trying to be able to scale into end game, it will be much harder.
I mean, the thing for me, like, I actually want a nerf patch. I just wanted a uniform nerf patch, and this feels like it is a patch that nerfs weapons like pretty aggressively. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
because they lowered the skill level cap on like
Martial
weapons,
weapons.
but
Yeah.
didn't do it for attack builds, but they didn't do it for spell builds. And
Yeah.
then now this essence thing also means that it's like dramatically harder to get a weapon online that does the thing. So like,
Yeah, I guess they felt the leech nerfs were strong enough to mess up with the current power of spell casting because mana casting is tough compared to like blood magic casting. And they also nerfed a bunch of other things about how you would trigger the cast on crit comments.
say more about that.
So there was a curse build where you throw out a like you use a lineage support gem called Dodras,
Mm-hmm.
and what Dodras did was it changes your curse into a hazard that does damage, and you could make that crit, and you could then put out a like spell cascaded curse with massive AoE that would instantaneously do damage with enough crit chance. You could make that crit, or if you're playing Oracle, you could make that crit, and then you could do a bunch of other leech shenanigans to basically continuously like refill your life bar. So as you're instantly critting, you're instantly then casting comments from cast on crit and cast on ailment. Um, maybe not cast on ailment, but definitely cast on crit. And so you're basically using your life pool to do comments. Your comments refill your life pool. You're instantly critting. It's all happening extremely fast. So maybe they feel like those changes to Deodra or not Deodras, Dodras,
Mm-hmm.
and your like life leech is good enough to make it so that like spells are just worse than most attacks. But I'm not as versed in cast on crit shenanigans as say like Dead Rabbit or
Sure.
somebody else
Sure.
who's deep in that. So
Does this? I mean, I put out a video about this like a month ago about the difference about the spectrum between a ground loot focused game and a crafting focused game.
mhm.
And I didn't really have a take. I was just explaining like here's a spectrum that exists and calling out that people should consider both of these options. So like for your perspective as someone who enjoys the craft and trade portion of the game as a primary way of your enjoyment,
Mhm.
is this like an anti-West patch? Like, do you
uh
enjoy this direction for the game?
I actually like it because everyone knows about, well, maybe not everyone, but people, a large group of people know about this weapon craft. They know how to do this thing 100% of the time. And we have a bunch of new things coming in with the like alloys, rune crafting, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
they have not necessarily unveiled.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm the kind of person who's like, damn, this sucks, but I'll find a way.
Yeah,
So
I'm kind of in the
it's
same
like
position where
exciting for me.
I'm kind of in the same position where like it does change which builds I think are easy to get online, and so I need to reconsider my league starter, which is sad. Um,
Hmm.
because like now I think I wasted all this time like pre-planning a grenade build that's going to be harder to progress speedily with.
Sure.
It's still by the way, to clarify for chat, it's still a good build. I will still be putting out a guide. It will be good and comfy and safe. The reason that this matters is because one of my goals is to push for ladder position on SSF, and being a person who cares about ladder position on SSF and was planning on using a weapon-based build, a martial weapon-based build, this affects me like kind of uniquely. So if you're watching this, it is still a good build, and especially in Trade League, or if you don't care about ladder position, it will still be one of the best possible, like, comfiest, safest League starters. So,
I
like,
would say, have you today tried using a crossbow that has IPD, flat fizz, and your desecrated grenade thing of choice, and then whatever other mods you get?
no, but I'm going to as soon as we're back in. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would give it a shot and just see like how it feels. Obviously, the damage is going to be less, but it might be fine. And I know your build is good, so you might be able to use that weapon, and that weapon might be able to carry you through tier 5 to tier 15, like up to tier 15, and then in tier 15 you might have to like play the game, be skillful. um,
well,
but
so like for me personally, getting to T15, like I've practiced T15 rush, and I've done it where like I have looked up and realized that I'm still using a level 33 crossbow in T15s. So like it's not going to be a problem for me. The problem is that I'm trying
right,
to support a pretty wide audience with
right,
build
right, right,
guide.
right, right.
And also, like, to be clear, it's not a fun or good build when you're using a shit weapon like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
like,
I mean, I would just see if the like having only good 3 good mods on the weapon feels miserable, or
yeah,
is it like still okay?
yeah, yeah. Um, so then for your league starter, I assume because you're league starting Frost Chrono, right? That's the basic idea.
Yeah, I'm going to do Chrono. I'm not sure if I'm going to do Frost. I'm like completing the rest of the acts today. I'm in Act 3, and it's really slow, and I'm cursed with a burden of knowledge that Ember Fusillade exists. And if I just use Ember Fusillade, like, like you can just look at the damage tooltip, and the Ember Fusillade damage tooltip is like 3,000, and the Frost Starts tooltip at the same zone, same time is like 500, and I'm just like, what, what's going on?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the Frost Art stuff is intended for it to be atomized as a machine gun thing, but it
Yeah.
still feels super bad when it just doesn't work like
Yeah,
generically.
when you compare the two, like I'm looking at my like recordings of Ember Fusillade on Geonor versus like
Mm-hmm.
the Frost Arts on Geonor, and I at one point in my Geonor kill with EF, I pull up my weapon just to double check that it was like not a cracked weapon, and it just had like gain and cast speed, and that was it. It's like, and then I look at my Frost Arts weapon, it has +2 to cold, it has cold damage and a gain, and it's slower still, and I was like, huh,
Yep.
this is tough.
Yeah, I mean Geonor in particular is an unfair comparison because he has like high
Yeah,
cold res, but you know.
yeah, but it's a fun, and then like even going forward to Jumanra, who has negative cold res, Ember Fusillade is still better. But I'm giving it a shot because it is like slowly coming online, and I I feel like there's a decent amount of appetite for Cold Chrono. So it's like
Yeah.
from the content creator's perspective, it's like, well, people seem to want this thing.
Yep.
I'll just give it to them.
Yep.
So
Yep. I'm gonna keep yapping with you for a second, but I want to prompt chat. If you guys have questions for me as a progression player or for Wes as a mercantilist, use highlight message and we will try to answer you guys so that way this can be like a more Q&A segment of this. I'm going to upload this as a YouTube video, so use
right on.
highlight message if you have questions. Um so what I was going to say about like your League Start build is you're considering these two different spellcaster options, and like obviously one of the strengths of following a West Desu like League Starter is that you are going to be more knowledgeable about the crafts to help get the build online. So like, does this affect your build choice at all, or like which crafts you're going to pursue early on, or going to be able to put out videos about the crafts to support your build?
Not really. Mostly because it takes me a while to make the crafting videos, so they come out very slowly, and um the fact whether or not like I am able to make the craft or not, like it might take me a while to figure out like a better weapon craft, but the like rings for mana stacking shenanigans will roughly be the same, and then like helmet, body armor, boots, gloves, etc. is also probably all the same. So
Hmm.
my ability to get the build online is more so determined by whether or not I like the skills and if like Comet still does damage, because I need a better boss killer than Frost Arts.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the crafting change is, I saw it, and I'm definitely coping on like, well, maybe they'll let us do essence and alloy, because it would be, I could see it being nice if it was like one is of the essence or whatever, and the other one is of alloy, and then you could have both of those. That would be kind of neat, because that still allows for like some cool interactions potentially, but that's probably not the case based on the language they have in this
Okay.
patch note.
And then while we're waiting for chat to type more questions, in PoE 1, which I don't play, I am told there is a mechanic to modify the number of allowed craftable weapon mods.
Yeah.
What is that mechanic?
Um, allowed craftable. So there's your crafting bench has meta modifiers, which are like prefixes cannot be changed, suffixes cannot be changed. And then there's also cannot roll caster modifiers and cannot roll attack modifiers. And there's probably more that I'm not aware of, because Path of Exile 1 has an incredible amount of crafting things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But the most commonly used ones are the prefixes cannot be changed and suffixes cannot be changed when you're like trying to finish the prefixes or suffixes on a weapon.
Okay. Couple of questions from chat. One for me, a couple for you. For progression, what is the best defensive layer now for Hunter's Grenades now that ES is nerfed? It is, for Ritualist specifically, it will still be Evasion ES with Deflection and Blind. A question for Wes. For a physical spellcaster, a vegan lich build, plants, what would be the gold standard day one staffcraft? So I'm presuming this is like, I have 5 div, I'm in maps, please
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. So for physical spells, and this is interesting for any element type on staves and wands, if you have like a physical staff, that physical staff, for instance, like a reaping staff, can only roll physical damage, whereas there are a few generic staves that could roll any elemental or physical or chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're playing a physical build, then you want to get your hands on a reaping staff or like a bone wand and craft onto that guy. And you probably want it to be a normal base or a magic base, and then you're hoping to get plus levels on it, or cast speed or crit. And if you're playing plants, you probably, if you get a crit modifier on a plant build, like your magic, you have a magic staff, you have some prefix, and then you have a crit suffix, then you want to probably just regal it and then target the prefixes and shift one prefix into plus all spells. You want to use like a Sinestral Crystallization, Omen, and then use the Perfect Essence of Sorcery. And then you have 3 prefixes where you have hopefully a damage modifier in the prefix, and then you have crit and all like +5 to all spells in the suffix. And then from there you can desecrate. You probably want to desiccate a prefix. I don't think cast speed is like super necessary on plants. It probably makes it feel better, but it probably doesn't like increase the DPS or like by a ton. And it's probably better to have damaging modifiers in your prefixes. So you probably want to desecrate a prefix and then just get a good damage prefix. And then the last 2 mods are slam and pray.
Okay. Another question for chat, a speculative question. Do you think they did this nerf because the new league mechanic is going to offer a ton of crafting options?
I think they did this nerf for two reasons. The first reason being you could craft a weapon 100% of the time and beat the game with that weapon. And so you essentially skip from like early maps to end maps with no meaningful progression between. And then it's also possible if you take a nice hit of copium, which is what I'm doing, that there are a lot of runic crafting things that will be really crazy. And Mark sat down, looked at his spreadsheets of what's available, and said, "Oh no, that's not allowed. That's illegal."
So,
So I do believe that the new runic crafting will be nutty, but we just don't know.
Okay. And then Natch and Rob asks a simple question that I can answer. Desecration with 6 mods bone not nuked. Yeah, Omen of Putrefaction is exactly the same as it was before, and basic essence crafting is much worse than it was before. So comparatively, Omen of Putrefaction is in a better position than it was before by staying still while other things get worse. How do you ensure onslaught with the quarterstaff now on the monk? I mean, I'll let Wes answer this question and then I'll add on my own thoughts afterward.
You don't.
Yeah.
Onslaught's probably not the best modifier. You probably want either the flat fizz or the skill levels. So,
Yep.
Onslaught's like third on that list.
Yep. I was gonna say there are high level glove mods that can be converted via martial artist for percent chance for martial art for onslaught on hit. But then also, like, just to reiterate what Wes said, because crafted mods are so limited now, and that one is, pretty good, but outclassed by other options, you almost certainly don't want to do that. I think that was all the questions that chat had that were relevant to the crafting discussion. Any other thoughts, Wes?
No. It sucks, but we gotta find something new.
You're on Triskelion, Cascade, Calgarian, TR Copium?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That sounds like a hell of a drug.
The spice must flow. The spice must
flow.
flow.
Like, the people who want to be able to like do crafting will figure out the best way to do crafting, and I'm not necessarily like one of those people who's like really gonna lock in like X the Farmer X or like lesser known person maybe Viking 007 00071.
Or Belton, or
Belton is there. Yeah. So like people will figure stuff out. But we just don't have the information for what that stuff is going to be yet.
Okay. And then if people want to follow up with you in 24 hours when we have more information about what the hell this means, because the community is very upset, and I'm sure that means that we can expect comms team to post something somewhere that we can read. If they want your take on that, the best way to get a hold of you is your Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch at twitch.tv/WestSU. I'm live every night from 10 p.m. PST to 2 a.m. PST.
Cool. I'm shouting out Wes in the Twitch chat, so you can follow Wes there and get his take later today if there's updated information. And since this is also going to be a YouTube video, I will upload this YouTube video and tag Wes in the YouTube video description.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah. All right, I have to go back to turbo stalling and trying to figure out if I'm supposed to play spells, but it was good chatting. Thanks for helping in.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem.